Happy New Year and welcome to a More Civilized Age 2022 edition. As you see, I have gotten rid of my regular co-host. I'm kidding. Ryan couldn't make it at such late notice. And but I have a special topic, a topic that I've been wanting to talk about for a few weeks now. I talked to Kyle about it. Chris Nelson, who is very passionate about it too. In fact, I meant to send him an invite just in case he couldn't make it. He said, but just in case, I need to go ahead and give him that invite if he can. But with me today, folks, you know him on a few of my streams before. He's also a contributor to the expandeduniverse.com, and that is Scott Johnson. Scott, thanks for coming on.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
The other man, you don't know him, but you will. He's been on a stream or two of mine as well. He's a good guy, all-around Star Wars fan, and expert in the upcoming novel by Joe Bongiorno. It is Kyle Rawlings. Kyle, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
And Kyle, you were the one that brought this to my attention, and it was kind of the talk. It's still the kind of the talk around town a little bit, and we're gonna talk about it. First off, tell us a little bit about Kyle, since you've been a little bit more involved with the upcoming novel. Tell us a little bit about it. Give us a preview for anyone who doesn't know what it is.
Just a general synopsis.
Yes.
It's you've started it. It's the Silmarillion of Star Wars.
It's exactly how, when I first read the original version, that's what I told him. I said, I think this is the Silmarillion of Star Wars. I had to look online at every little reference that was given there just so I could catch up. But it's really good. But yeah. So it basically follows, what is his name? I cannot pronounce his name.
Arhul Hextrafon is his name.
Wow. Bravo. So it follows him as he goes on a journey. Now we're learning this from past tense in a way. It's his findings are being reviewed by a board and they're being recounted at this time. And so he goes into the weird, wild, unexplained, and the less trodden path of Star Wars lore, if so to speak. I mean, from history of Celestials to the odd and end of the Ewoks cartoon to the UK Marvel, and there may even be some Alan Moore Star Wars in there as well. So that's from what I read a long time ago. Things may have changed. But or actually added to is the more proper phrase. So anything you want, it's an EU continuity dream come true. Any questions that I never even had and I was okay with, he explains, but he explains it so well because that's what Joe's been doing for a long time. He and everyone else involved in the expanded universe, Rich Hanley, of course, Joe, and a few, Ryder Wenham, the same thing too. Anyone who tackles Daniel Wallace and everything, all of these people tackle continuity in some way, shape, fashion, or form through some of the, what are they called? The, not the encyclopedias, but the guides. Yeah, the essential guides and whatnot, by making those connections. And that's what these guys are hired to do. And they're there to see the common denominator in every story, because even though there was no intention of symmetry, they make it to where, I mean, like a good conspiracy theorist, this is a terrible way to describe Joe, but a good conspiracy theorist can always make things make sense, right? They sound like everything was planned. And it's hard to have that eye when it comes to the odd and end of the expanded universe. But again, this is from the rough draft a long time ago that he released back in 2018. It seems like it was earlier than that. That I read, and it made so many connections, and a lot of it made sense. Now, I've been mum on the story as a whole because there's so much that have been changed and added to. I don't even know what's in it yet. I am really excited, as we all are. Scott, any thoughts about this upcoming novel?
Yeah, I'm really excited. I was just reading some of it today just to kind of refresh my memory. And I know as of right now, as of the date we're recording this, he's got 8 chapters. Joe's got 8 chapters up on his site of the expanded edition. So you can get a sneak peek if by the time this drops, it hasn't already been released yet. There's just pretty much anything weird and unexplained or that you were curious about, stuff from the UK comics, the Devil Worlds, anything weird in Star Wars is name dropped somewhere in that 8 chapters. And I can't wait to see what's next in the rest of the novel.
Yeah, from monkeys with skulls to someone throwing a shade. It's all and West End game stuff, I should also mention as well.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
There's a lot of West End game references. I mean, to say that Joe did his homework is the understatement of the year. I mean, this guy is like the Jocasta Nu of Star Wars, except that he's read every book in the Jedi library. So, yeah, it's really incredible. And of course, this is something that's going to be celebrated in 2022 by a lot of EU fans, and rightfully so, because it is an official, uncanceled extension from the Legends, what's called Legends universe. Kyle, do you want to go into any detail on that?
I completely agree. As far as the canonicity is concerned,
Yeah.
everybody should be excited because a project that Joe's been working on tirelessly for years is finally arriving, and it's a celebration of the expanded universe, and it's for the fans.
Yeah. And it was featured on StarWars.com a few years ago. His story and Abel G. Pena's story with links to their websites. Abel G. Pena's was a Skywalker's, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And it did talk about Supernatural and Cult Encounters by Joe. And both of that was referenced just a few years ago, not too long ago on StarWars.com. And celebrated then, but Joe has never actually completed it. So this is his completed version. Imagine the first version that was out there up until the cancellation of the Legends universe was his first draft, so to speak. It was never really completed. What we got was a first draft. Am I right in saying that, Kyle?
You are.
Okay, yeah. I don't want to misspeak. That's why Kyle's here, so I don't misspeak. I wrote it originally, and Joe stole it from me. No, hey, Scott, what were you going to say?
And the other thing, Matt, in case viewers aren't familiar with the background of this was almost 20 years in the making. This has been approved time and time again by Lucasfilm in many different forms. It started out, Joe wrote a piece for Star Wars Gamer, which was a magazine. I think it ran about 10 issues by Wizards of the Coast way back when. So Cult Encounters and Supernatural Encounters were supposed to be part of that publication prior to it being canceled. And then it was picked up again and approved again via hyperspace. But the cancellation of that platform prevented it from being officially released. So now, in 2015, there was a period of time just before the spring where Lucasfilm was able to approve certain Legends items, and Skywalker's was one of the ones that came out during that time by Abel G. Pena. The other one that was approved was Supernatural Encounters. It was never released on StarWars.com, but it was approved. Joe has the paperwork. It's been released. It's been approved 3 times. So there is absolutely no doubt that this was officially licensed by Lucasfilm. It is part of the expanded universe.
And that's a good point. Yeah, we should also mention all the communication between Joe and Lucasfilm has been documented, actually. So it's not making anything up, which Joe has shared.
Yes.
The documentation too. Yeah.
Yeah, he has the receipts.
Yeah, he kept the receipts, as they say. So this was a big thing, and I remember reading those Gamer. I didn't realize it was Joe until talking to him, but he was the one who gave the behind-the-scenes look at all the aliens from Marvel comic books back in the Gamer. If anyone remembers that, because for me, I had just started reading, I think, or knew a little bit about I didn't read the comic books until the first Legacy of the Jedi came out. So somewhere, wherever that timeline was with Gamer, is when I went back and looked over those, because it was interesting to hear more information about these one-off alien creatures like the pterodactyl-looking people with wings. I remember he did one with them and stuff. So I was enjoying that kind of stuff. I love it when people add a history to a alien species that was featured in maybe a couple issues of the Marvel comic books. That's my kind of stuff. That's right up my alley. But anyway, so Joe's been doing this for quite some time. He's been working with Lucasfilm on and off for several years, previous to the takeover. And, his project was allowed to continue on. And that was basically he and Abel G. Pena both got the green light for that.
Correct.
So the topic here came about because a few weeks ago, Wikipedia, there were some issues over the canonicity question by a fan site. A fan site. This is not a Lucasfilm site. It's not an officially recognized site or anything like that. It is a fan site, Wookpedia. Kyle, give us the kind of lowdown on how this whole thing went down.
Again, there was an irate fan, from what I understand. Things kind of snowballed over the course of months, and they snowballed this effect to bring to a vote whether or not to even have it on the Wikipedia at all. And then they chose to strike all of it from the record, including the former ambiguous articles. All of it's going, which is it's not right.
Yeah,
It's not right.
It's also one of those things where some is he a fan? I mean, was he a fan? I mean, was he related? What's his relation to the Star Wars fandom? Is he related to Wikipedia? Is he someone who, I mean, what was the big deal? How did he find out? You go ahead. What was his bone?
As far as the original fan or whatever.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean? Again, like, I'm not the best as far as keeping track of all these people who spread hate. But excuse me, I shouldn't have said it that way. But
that's true. I think that's fair.
Yeah, but there's been discord there for quite some time. Been fighting for a very long time with the page to just acknowledge more supernatural encounters, articles, etc. And they've contested it for quite a while. And from what I understand, Joe has had his time as far as trying to reach out to them at one point, and he can elaborate on that further. But nobody was contacted in this recent situation now. No, I mean, the most transparent author out there wasn't contacted about the Wikipedia vote or anything like that. So I think it's all kind of silly.
Yeah, that's another thing we should mention. No one here is speaking for Joe.
Correct. Absolutely.
Yeah, no one here is speaking for Joe. Not. We're just speculating. If I could speak for Joe, it'd be a bunch of F-bombs. I'm kidding. I wouldn't. No, Joe's great. No, go ahead.
We're speculating, but we can't. We're not speculating, but we can speak to what Joe has already stated on his social media.
Yes, that's all we can talk to.
He's made certain points, and he's been abundantly clear on his position, on what happened, on all the facts, and really the administrators at Wikipedia didn't want any part of that. They made up their decision prior to him releasing the documentation on the approval. And they kind of dug their feet in the sand. They're not going to go back on their word. Apparently, it's unfortunate, but there's nothing really we can do because it's a fan site. There's no doubt Wikipedia does have wide reach in terms of expanded universe content. The first Google hit that you get from any expanded universe character is going to be Wikipedia.
Yes.
They have wide reach, but they're not official. And we just have to be clear on that.
Correct. And by the way, who are the people who made Wikipedia famous? They're the people who cared about the expanded universe, the same people that they're turning against here. I want to make a few points here. First off, this is incredibly hypocritical because right now on the site are several unpublished novels, short stories, comics, everything, unpublished, unfinished, or even better, it was supposed to be published in West End Games, a link to the author's blog. you can still go to read that story, that unpublished story from West End Games that never got made, never got approved. The cancellation of the Adventure Journal hindered it. It actually got officially canceled, yet there's a link to the site on Wikipedia. So there is a lot of hypocrisy going on right now with Wikipedia to take a stance here, oddly enough, for something that they've been celebrating. We've been celebrating any news about the expanded universe that we can get, okay? And Legends fans have made the site popular. In fact, they contributed to the site several times before, and now we're being told, no, we're done. There's this weird hatred or disregard, I should say, for sure, but it seems like even a hatred of Legends material and content. I know this because they haven't updated that site since 2013 as Legends goes. They don't care anymore. They just let it sit there and rot and go outdated. Okay? And it's super ridiculous. When I was doing my timeline for Matt's Expanded Universe, I quickly stopped using Wikipedia. They are so unreliable as timeline goes. It is a mess, a giant mess. You want a better timeline? You can look at Joe's. I don't like how Joe puts new canon in there, or I don't like how he does the Nathan Butler. Here's the preface to the chapter. Here's the prequel. And then here's the flashback that goes here. Now, I understand people love that. People love that. And he and Nathan P. Butler are insanely precise on where certain chapters fit. But me, I just want to do it in a reading order. So, and I'll be honest, when I came across, Wikipedia was a complete mess. Okay, let me just tell you that. At the very beginning, during the Old Republic, it was a mess. I stopped then. I was like, it wasn't like during the Clone Wars where it's obviously a mess, but it was like well before the first prequel movie. I was so confused. Things were out of order, not making sense. I looked at Joe's. Joe's made a lot more sense. I even made a few suggestions for Joe. I was asking why he put this over this, and then I'd list my reason. And instead of giving me a rebuttal, Joe would go, "Thanks, I'm going to change that." No, I'm just saying. Why did you put that ahead of one? So Joe's very humble. Joe's never going to Joe's not someone who's going to overstep his boundaries, make false claims, try to be something. He doesn't have that's the bar phrase from Star Wars. He doesn't have delusions of grandeur. Joe's not expecting people to get up and give him a standing ovation for this. Joe is just saying, hey, if there are any EU fans out there, you want to read something, I got something that's coming. So you guys can celebrate and read it. That's great. That's great. That's something fans read. He's not saying, oh, by the way, I'm available for autographs. My T-shirt is on sale at my gift shop. Come check me out. He's not saying any of that. He's doing all this for free.
Yeah.
He's doing all this out of his spare time, which doesn't pay. His other stuff, his other gigs pay. This one doesn't. He's doing this straight for the fans. Okay? So there's no look at me, worship me. I am great. No, there's none of that. It's like, hey, guys, here's something you may enjoy. That's all it is. But some guy on Wikipedia takes a point with it for some unknown reason. Takes a point with it and starts cutting him down. Where Joe starts posting, oh, here's another, folks, breaking news. Chris Nelson.
Yes.
Now I feel like we just formed Voltron. Okay, that's how happy I am. I mean, you got a better chance at catching Bigfoot these days. Okay. Oh my goodness, you look ravishing, sir.
Oh, likewise, of course.
I'm sorry, I would have worn a shirt and tie had I known. No, what were you talking about, Chris? Chris, just to catch you up, we were talking about the book itself, the Wikipedia matter, the hypocrisy that they have links to other unpublished stories right now on writers' blogs that you can go to of officially canceled stories. Yet there's this double standard when it comes to Joe's book, and that Joe, and this is where I was beforehand, see that it made him so mad his connection blinked. Yeah. But the thing is, it made Joe's not someone who is looking for this heaps of praise. He's someone that's delivering something to him. He's frozen right now, but we'll get back to him. Scott, thoughts on this?
Well, just your point on Joe. Joe is very accessible. You know, I emailed him a couple months back. He got back to me the same day, just on something. It wasn't important at all. He just took his time to answer my question. So the fact that the administrative team at Wikipedia didn't even contact him, you know, they at first, if you look at, because I read the forums where they discussed this in their Senate hall meetings or whatever, where they discussed this in a variety of topics. So first, they didn't believe the claims that Joe made that this was official. It was approved by Pablo, you know, at certain dates.
Even though documentation had been
not yet. Not yet.
Oh, okay.
This was prior to that.
Excuse me. Go ahead.
And they were asking, well, if you know anybody has documentation proving this, bring it to our attention and we'll consider it. And then somebody on Joe's behalf says, okay, here's the documentation. I got this from Joe. And then shortly after, Joe says, okay, yes, I've released this. He was very careful in releasing the emails. He released only what he needed to.
Right.
It wasn't any personal information, wasn't any unnecessary information released. So what Wikipedia says, based on looking at that information, they say, we're not going to post it. You know, we said, we've looked at it, we've considered it, we're not changing our opinion. And it's almost like moving the goalposts. They said, we're looking for proof. We got the proof, and they're not changing their mind. So,
and by the way, the proof that it was never considered is what, from a tweet of someone who doesn't speak?
Well, there were certain tweets by Matt Martin.
And we know how reliable that guy is.
Well, Matt Martin basically says, I don't remember it at all. So it was almost like
Matt Martin wasn't even around.
Matt Martin did approve the final version in 2015.
Did they point out the blog post? Did that prick his memory there? On StarWars.com?
They were supposed to, per their word, they were supposed to post a link on the blog at StarWars.com back to Joe's site.
They did, I think. He and Abel G. Pena both had links, I want to say.
Abel G. Pena did have a link. Joe's did not. And that's the crux of the issue. That's why this is a whole controversy.
But Joe's article was mentioned with Abel G. Pena's.
I don't know that. But the point of contention from Wikipedia's perspective is, unlike Skywalker's, which there was an actual link on StarWars.com to Abel G. Pena's site, that was not the case for Joe's. Even though Matt Martin agreed and Pablo Hidalgo agreed that was the plan.
Chris, any thoughts?
Sorry, by the way, Wikipedia took me down, so I apologize. I don't know how long I was gone. Yeah, a lot of thoughts. I mean, just really briefly, because I could blab forever, but I mean, it doesn't make any sense. It's super frustrating. Matt, I told you, I said I was just outraged. I mean, this is just in a long chain this year of abuses, right? That like starts from just like the constant sort of gaslighting over and confusion over like the KOTOR remake and all this kind of stuff, the refusal to acknowledge like the Heart of the Jedi success. I mean, just a variety of things. This is just really super frustrating. For me, it confirms what many EU fans have felt for the last several years, which is that Wikipedia is pretty worthless, right? And I hope that this cements in people's minds that this is just a bunch of kids making stuff up. That in other words, Wikipedia isn't official, right? So whatever they say doesn't in the end actually matter, right? In two respects. Yeah. One, we know what Lucasfilm thinks. We know what at least they at one point thought about it because we have information from Joe. One thing to keep in mind too, one thing that Joe's always been very good about, particularly this many years past the reboot, despite what I think we all agree on, which is that we want more, we want a continuation, right? A sort of a pure continuation of the EU alongside the new canon. Joe is very clear about that. At some point, what canon is has to sort of, defer, back to us, the fans, right? So don't worry about what the quote unquote official sort of sources say. We know what it is, right? In some sense, right? And that's a very Joe Bongiorno-esque point, right? To keep in mind. But but yeah, it's totally hypocritical. I mean, all throughout Wikipedia, there's things that are of quasi-canonicity, that have articles, and moreover, there are sources they use that aren't your traditional encyclopedic sources, right? Wikipedia can't even hide behind its, oh, well, we're an encyclopedia, we need official this, that, the other, signed, sealed, delivered. There's like a whole range of Barbara Hambly emails all throughout Wikipedia that serve as sources for background information about all of her books and characters, right, and potential storylines and stuff. So it just doesn't make sense. It's just really, really sad. Again, it's just more sort of distance between us and and the Pablos and the Lelands and stuff. Who, anyway,
it's picking and choosing, what you believe in, what you want to have. It's that double standard I talked about earlier. It makes zero sense. And another thing about that you kind of brought up a little bit is they've been kind of disconnected with the fans. And we mentioned this earlier, that they're not updating the legends portion of their site. And it's so badly run. And isn't that what made them popular? Now, the good news is maybe I should come out and say Wikipedia is not officially recognized by Star Wars in no way, shape, fashion, or form. Right. They do not represent, their thoughts do not represent Lucasfilm's thoughts. Their decision is definitely not the same as Lucasfilm's in this judgment call. I mean, go ahead.
Yeah, no, again, I mean, and I've made this point over the years, which is that, I mean, I think Wikipedia has played an enormous role, and I think sowing confusion over what it is that we, the EU community, are and what we want. And I think it's even sowed confusion among EU fans, right? Who, for instance, will say things like, well, see, Son of Dathomir, it's not part of both canons because the Wikipedia article doesn't say legends, And so people have looked for a long time to Wikipedia as an official source, and it's not. And I will say this, there's something, I mean, just to be intellectually honest about this, right? It's not even though there are a group of administrators at Wikipedia who do have some sort of editorial sort of authority over what the community of editors sort of chooses to write on that. Ultimately, it is as strong as contributors like us. In theory, anyone can contribute, right? And I think so. It's not that they're not contributing. It's not that Wikipedia is not keeping legends up to date. It's that lots of fans like us don't feel welcome to come there and do it precisely because of this, because you put the time in to make an article about something like supernatural encounters and it gets taken down. Yeah. And for years, too, things like the tag at the top that said this was a canceled work. Where's the citation? Where's the support that it was ever canceled? Yeah. That was another inaccuracy, right? That has been addressed even recently on the top page of that article. It says, "Show me the source where they say it's canceled." Do you know what their response is? It's getting deleted. It's moot. It doesn't really matter. And as an encyclopedia that's supposedly sort of hiding behind the shield of we need the facts, we need the proof. Where's the proof for that? So it's really frustrating. I'll just add too, I think because if I understand correctly, their policy, they're going to just get rid of everything related to the project. But it's like, hey, again, by their own logic, keep an article up about the first version, right? If their big bugaboo is that Joe has added on to it and thus making it sort of not official, great, then keep an article that explains that at some point a while back there was a version, right? Two quick points. This is a partial cautionary tale about our fandom. This is like a weird angle to take, but it's a partial cautionary tale. There is a bright side to this. And the cautionary tale is that I don't know for a fact, but I don't know if Joe was encouraging people to go out there and sort of agitate Wikipedia to sort of like, right? So we should worry a little bit about how we kind of rattled the cages. And this is how they responded, right? So in some sense, maybe leave well enough alone. It was really good that there was a lot of sources up there, right, for people who wanted to know about it, right? So that's the bad side. And I think back to, Matt, all the drama you and I've had on YouTube and stuff about how half of the problem has been third parties coming and trying to defend us, right? And then third parties come and then attack us. And it's like, hey, if everyone just let us have the fight with, our YouTube enemies, it would have been over a lot quicker. Cautionary tale. Here's the bright side. I can't wait for Wikipedia to take all the info down about that book. You know why? Because then Joe's site becomes the primary resource, right? So Joe and thus all of us and Joe's supporters and supporters of the EU and that book, we get to control the narrative around that book solely. And actually that's a very good thing. So thank you, Wikipedia, for doing something that's ultimately going to benefit, I think, the book and the community. So
I agree. I agree with that statement. Scott, anything to add on this?
Yeah, the inconsistencies are just rampant for that site. I mean, there was this whole issue with the Heart of the Jedi earlier this year, and you look, that still has a page, even though that was officially canceled. However, that heading that says canceled material, it's not there, at least as of today when I checked. And there's just been numerous examples of authors releasing material through their own channels that has always been accepted as expanded universe for decades.
Yep.
That I was talking to you earlier about Patricia A. Jackson's Machinations of Darkness.
Mm-hmm.
She released that in 2002. It was supposed to be part of Star Wars Gamer as well, and the Adventure Journal even before that. So another example, Daniel Wallace with the Book of Sith. So there were a bunch of endnotes that were not included in that novel when it was published. He went upon himself without any approval documented from Lucasfilm on his site to add certain endnotes to that. And it's always been accepted as canon, expanded universe. There hasn't been any controversy to this until this point. The other sort of negative point regarding Wikipedia's decision on this is they did not realize the extent of similar issues to what we're dealing with here, with supernatural encounters being released and taking that down on the site. They're actually going to go in and they said they would take all these other instances out where the documentation is not through Lucasfilm's channels. So Machinations of Darkness is out, the endnotes to the Book of Sith is out, all these things are out. They're basically just gutting their own platform. And I just wonder what their aim is here, because obviously they want eyes to their site, right? It's run by advertising dollars, and I would think they'd want eyes on their site. Otherwise, what's the point, right? So I just wonder what their aim is. I know they're trying to stick it to the expanded universe and stick it to us, but what's the aim of this? What's the point? I mean, it seems like a needless fight.
Yeah, and you got some other ones too. Paul Danner is the one that I was mentioning. Paul Danner has a blog. He was going to write some of those short. I can't. Love is a Warm Blaster, I remember, was one. There's another one too. There's a link to his blog there. All his stories are still posted there. These were officially canceled. I mean, it just, like I said, the double standard is just insane. Yeah.
And I've sometimes found myself like in like a weird relationship to Wikipedia the last several years, because although my interest in it has declined ever since 2014 and all the decisions they've made about how they want to react to the Legends community and how I think they've sort of turned many of us away. I've said this before, and without doxing myself, I'm the chief editor of a Wikipedia style platform on the internet, much bigger than Wikipedia, but I appreciate that runs on a similar sort of model. I appreciate that the principle that they're sort of aiming at, right, which is like encyclopedic backing, right? Like you can't make things up, you can't synthesize certain facts, they have to sort of be grounded. I really appreciate that. And so when people, for instance, have sort of complained about how they say, well, I created an article and it got taken down, you know, did you put the proper sourcing? I get that, right? I've wanted to defend them, right? And as a tactic, I've said maybe what we all ought to do is become really good editors, right, at Wikipedia, and we could, you know, see more of what we want to see there. Anyway, as much as I wanted to say that, Scott, you're totally right. It's like, what are they aiming at here, right? I mean, if it's all the things that I've tried to defend them for over the years, right, then it's like, when you've got official sources being offered by the author and turning them away, what more can you conclude except that, yeah, you just want to make an example out of Joe and out of all of us. So
here's my official communication with Lucasfilm. That's more than anyone has ever. Paul Danner didn't have to do that.
Right.
Kathy Tyers didn't have to. No one had to justify that their stuff is. And the thing is, he's not a new author. This is the other thing here. He has contributed several things to the expanded universe in the past.
West End Games, Star Wars Insider.
Star Wars Gamer,
Star Wars Gamer,
Hyperspace.
yes.
Yeah, I mean, he was.
It's not like this guy just came out of the blue and said, "Hey guys, I have a story. You're gonna love it."
A Star Wars contributor was the Holocron Keeper before there was even a Holocron Keeper Leland. And moreover, if anyone has ever sort of benefited from the Wild Space Omnibus and Dark Horse, guess what? You're reading Joe's actual content, right? That he gave to Dark Horse to reprint, right? So obviously someone with extremely deep roots, and but this is just part and parcel of, I think, like the alienation he and a lot of folks from that pre sort of reboot era really feel, And again, I happened to see recently someone tag Leland Chi on Twitter about all this, and again, Leland just doing the sort of like, oh, I don't know about anything, he goes, I haven't heard about this, and so it just worked.
Leland wants out of it. He just he wants to go back to bed. He's the cranky old guy now. He did get off my lawn. I just want to be left alone now. Like when someone asked him about, hey, where do you fit Junior Jedi Knights? Went, well, I looked at Pablo Hidalgo's Essential Reader's Guide. Yeah, doofus. That's why we have the question. It's very vague. Where is it? Yeah. Give a little bit more effort like you used to back in the day. It's like, well, I don't care about this anymore because it's done now, and it's just sad. It's sad about that 180 there.
I just, by the way, I always get a certain, given all this, right, and how unhelpful he's been sort of post 2014, I always get a special kick out of the fact that in at least the mind of folks on social media, Pablo Hidalgo is the person who they think of when they think of, oh, I know I need to ask someone about Star Wars, right? They think that he was the Holocron Keeper, right? Given how ineffectual Leland really was at the time, right? And everything else. And I mean, again, I love it. Again, like his literal response was something like, oh, I haven't heard of a new Legends book coming out. It's like, yeah, the way you apparently hadn't heard of most things in the EU pre-2014 either. Otherwise, you would put your foot down like you were supposed to do, right? Let all these weird things come in circa Clone Wars. So anyway.
And the thing is, it does have, Joe's mentioned this on his site, Kyle, there's an upcoming audio book, and it's going to be starring the guy who is reprising his role. Scott, give me his name one more time.
Nick Joseph. Nick Joseph is the actor.
I don't think Joseph, but who's the character? I'm sorry.
Arhal Hextrafon.
Yes. And so that is really cool.
It is.
Yeah.
And
that's not. Oh, go ahead.
The ironic thing about that is the actor, right? Because Arhal Hextrafon, he's from West End Games, and he wasn't initially thought to be in A New Hope in the film. So the person that identified who he was actually Leland Chi through his Star Wars Insider, I think it was called the Rogues Gallery, something like that. So he identified the actor in the background that is Arhal Hextrafon in A New Hope. That's the irony of that.
Wow. And to be honest, there'll be more announcements coming on about this. When the book gets released, you'll hear more about the audiobook and everything. But that's not the only surprise Star Wars fans can have as it pertains to the audiobook. Is that fair to say, Kyle?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. There's a lot coming up. I think that the announcement of Nick joining the cast is enough for today, but absolutely.
Absolutely. No, yeah, absolutely.
There's a lot of things coming, and I think that it's going to be a spiritual piece as far as our casting goes.
Yeah, but I think fans are going to be surprised, and if it could have been revealed, was another piece of confirmation. Because I'll just say that it was checked again by someone outside of this group here, outside of Joe's circle. Someone got in contact with Lucasfilm. I'm not going to say who, but someone got in contact and said, is this legit? And it was legitimized earlier this year. So that's all I'm going to say there. And that will be revealed later on. But the thing is, though, again, what further proof do you want? And regardless, I see Chris's point exactly. I don't really care about Wikipedia. I have not cared about Wikipedia since 2013. I mean, that, like I said, again, doing Mass Expanded Universe, Wikipedia was no help. There's no help at all. So it seems like they gave little to no effort to continue on filling out those stub pieces. Afterwards, they just abandoned it. Kind of like, and I love Nathan Fillion, but kind of like how he just abandoned going through. He was doing a review in publication order.
Oh, Nathan Butler. Nathan Butler.
Oh, sorry, Nathan P. Butler. Excuse me. Why was I mentioning the guy from Firefly? Nathan P. Butler. Excuse me. Was doing one that I absolutely loved. He stopped it. He turned off the waterworks. Well, he said, "Oh, I got to go to the new canon now." I was like, "No, keep doing it." That's where I got my idea.
Yeah.
Same here, Matt. I love that series, and it was a shame that he ended that so early.
Yeah.
Oh, it's fantastic. That's what spurred me to do mine. But it's one of those things where Joe is just trying to get it out there, get the word out there, so that fans can understand. Hey, if you liked Heart of the Jedi, guess what? Mm-hmm. There's something very similar to that's coming out too that didn't get canceled. Here's the completed version. So enjoy. And it's something that fans should just enjoy. And I don't understand why certain other fan sites just can't let other people enjoy something.
Yeah.
That's something I just don't. You were made, you got big because of these exact fans. Mm-hmm. And now you don't want to celebrate anything associated with Legends.
Yeah. And I think part of what happened is when Supernatural Encounters first dropped, there was all these links because it mentioned so many obscure expanded universe characters, and the people that make edits to Wikipedia, they linked all these little things. So Supernatural Encounters probably had a couple hundred links to various other pages on the site, and that's probably how this showed up on the radar.
Yeah, could have. I mean, again, though, I know they've been getting, I mean, at least on social media, they've been getting tagged about this. I mean, there's a new wave of people coming out and wanting to know more about this. And again, now the great thing is when they Google it, they'll find Joe's site, and so we should, I mean, it would be nice if as a community we got together and really continued to push this. I mean, there's been waves of excitement about this. We really need to spread the word. And again, as I say, I'm utterly thrilled that Wikipedia is going to delete those pages because it just means that they're going to find our content and our love of it, and they'll be able to, because I see a lot of confusion still within the fandom. I mean, people who still wonder, well, Joe might have the paperwork, but that doesn't mean it's canon and Legends continuity and stuff. So there's just this whole series of debates that we have to have even amongst ourselves because Wikipedia is sort of confusing things. By the way, in terms of people not wanting just to let us have our fun, I always think of Matt Martin and the number of times he's come on to sort of say don't be excited about this success for the EU. Don't be excited. Right? The number of times he's told me that specifically, right? I mean, but I need to count on more than one hand, but one of the things that they always say, and one of the things that he's always said is, well, there could be no continuation of the EU. You know why? Because they go, that would just be too costly to Lucasfilm. The editorial oversight required, all these sorts of things. Joe is doing all the work. This is costing nothing. You're now costing yourself time by fighting us about this, right? So they can't even give us something that is literally free for them right at this point. By the way, can I just go back one thing? Because I love to dunk on Leland when I can, because again, he's been so unhelpful to us. I want to return the favor.
Go ahead.
I've been harping for years about my love of the sort of the third party RPG mags that have Star Wars content, right? It's sort of like a little kind of sub sort of fandom interest of mine. And there have been great discussions on Joe's Discord about this over the last number of months or whatever. Lots of people got lots of insight about, well, I can find the paperwork here for this magazine, but not for this one, et cetera, et cetera. In the super vast majority of cases, we know for a fact that these things are licensed through all the old official channels. But when Leland Shee started to build the Holocron, and when it became slightly difficult at the time to find some of that paperwork, even though we knew anecdotally and through all sorts of other deductions and stuff that these things have been licensed, what did he say and what did he determine? Well, it's too tough to find the paperwork. So let's invent S-canon, right? And sowed more confusion into the fandom that we're still dealing with today. And so this is, in some ways, this is just Wikipedia sort of learning from their role models over at the way that Lucasfilm sort of clumsily handled its reshuffling of canon back in the early 2000s. So again, it's like that's coming home to roost once again. So again, for people who wonder why I always complain about S-canon, this is why, because it's so illegitimate, because it's just about people saying, well, I see the paperwork, or it's kind of hard to access the paperwork. Whatever, hands up, S-canon. But by the way, even by that token, Wikipedia should then call this S-canon, right? I mean, right? It's just, file it under the paperwork is a little hard to understand, right? That's kind of it. So anyway.
Well,
Exactly. Go ahead.
The thing about supernatural encounters is it's such an academic work. It's not like it's Sword of the Jedi. It's not the lost epic tale of something. No disrespect to Joe, but it's almost like an essential guide. It was written in narrative form. And it does make a lot of great connections. It's a great read, but it's nothing that you would need to, I think, even enter into the holocron. I mean, all the stuff is already there. What's to enter? That this person is still alive at this date. That's about it.
It's all supplemental knowledge is what it is. It's what's being presented to us. It's not the continuing adventures of Luke Skywalker and here's what happened after this. You're right. It's not anything like that. Kyle, you've been quiet for a minute. Go ahead.
I've been trying to hold it. No, you go. I have to collect my thoughts on that before I start talking.
Okay. No, I'm just
the other thing that's sort of ironic here, and viewers can go read Supernatural Encounters, at least the first 8 chapters that are up there. But if you read the first couple chapters, it's almost a microcosm of what's happening in the real world. I was talking to Kyle before we went live about this. So the whole premise of the story is this academic paper, the last academic paper that Texture Fun wrote prior to his death. It's Cult Encounters and Supernatural Encounters. And they're discussing whether this stuff is accurate. It's this this Galactic Federation of Free Alliances. It's this historical council, and they're discussing whether this work is true or not. With all these supernatural entities, with all these crazy life forms, is this accurate? So it's almost a microcosm of what Wikipedia is trying to analyze with the work. So I just found that ironic, and I didn't see that mentioned anywhere else.
Hilarious, Scott. Yeah.
The symbolism's real, huh? How it comes full circle.
Yeah. It's
and
go ahead.
No, speaking of, it's just all of this is just because I mean, of course we have forums and all that kind of stuff, but this is the first podcast that I've ever seen in as far as a defense of this book. Besides casual passing, a group of people like you being here, but it's really disheartening to see what's happening and how people are dragging Joe's name, regardless of this book. It needs to stop. They're personally like attacking his character and his dedication to this fandom and accusing him of grandiosities and all these kind of things, and it just really needs to come to a head. Sorry, I just kind of like had to get that out real quick.
I completely agree, because this is someone who has contributed a ton of stuff in the past. Like I said, this isn't some guy that just came out of left field and said, "Hey guys, I wrote this story a long time ago for Luke." We don't know. We know Joe. Yeah. Any Star Wars fan should, if they're following, especially a Wookpedia fan, should know him.
And that's just it. I think that like a group of his peers, in this kind of a format, this kind of a setting, this is kind of a chance to actually speak up for him. And he didn't ask any of us to do this, and I'm supposed to be really good because I'm part of that team. I can't speak out of turn, say a lot of things that I truly want to say, but it is good to be here with you guys and try to shed some light on the fact that he's not trying to take over this fandom. In fact, like, it's really a tragedy to watch all these people stone him online while he's just dedicating every day for months. And over the past year, since I've joined his team, it's every day that we're like talking about this. And he deserves a lot of credit, even if people don't want to count his book as canon, that's a separate conversation, right? Obviously, but it just needs to end as far as the attack on the man, because he's just really trying to do his best to help a lot of people who feel hurt by something that they came to love, because Star Wars isn't just a franchise, it's a movement, and a lot of people are attached to it across the world, and he thinks he's really taking strides to bring everyone together in the aftermath of something that was kind of terrible.
Yeah.
As far as that, you called it the takeover, and I hence say the same thing. Whenever I'm writing these kind of things out, I say with a T, the takeover. think he's really trying to help a lot of people, and I'll stop going on and on about it. But I'm just glad that you guys, his actual peers, are here to say something good about the man, because it's important that we do. And I there's not a whole lot of positive support for him other than like select corners, and so I'm glad that we're here to bring a little bit here. Sorry.
Right. No, Chris.
Absolutely.
That's great. No, but very well said. I guess I just to add that, yeah, I mean, Star Wars is for everyone, right? I mean, that's something that I know the present Lucasfilm markets, and that's something I believe too. And the irony is of anyone thinking that, yeah, he's got delusions of grandeur or anything. I mean, he's one of the most humble people I've ever known, and his passion, it continues to inspire me to stick with Star Wars in what are dark times for us in this side of the fandom. And what's so ironic is that of all of us, Joe's actually the one that actually spends time keeping up with the new stuff too, right? So for anyone who thinks he's part of this, right? I mean, yeah, I mean, actually, often to the consternation of some EU purists who go, "Why is he, adulterating that timeline with rebels and things like that?" Yes, Mr. Wilkins included. No, but I mean,
I would have used the word bastardized, but go ahead.
And that's the thing, yeah. You, Kyle, you sort of alluded to sort of the separate question of canonicity and stuff like that. What has always been to me so liberating about Joe's worldview about Star Wars is he is smart enough, knowledgeable enough about Star Wars, and nuanced enough to say, "Hey, I know how to break the different timelines apart." But you know what? From his point of view, he promotes sort of an ecumenical sort of take on the chronology overall. He goes out of his way to do that, to make sense of the new Star Wars in the context of the old. And so again, in ways that I think we could even all sort of like learn from here, at least in terms of just sort of the ecumenicism of the approach to sort of enlarging the fandom or whatever. Joe's a role model, I think, for all sort of just like folks in fandom, right? Yeah, it's really sad to see anyone sort of impugning anything about his character, which is, I think, pretty much beyond reproach. So I'm glad you mentioned that, Kyle. I will praise Joe for all the realistic sort of good that he, I think, brings to the fandom and to the internet and everywhere else, right? So which is not easy to do. Yeah.
And I would say this: there are, Joe just doesn't get to hear from them, but there are a lot of people who understand who Joe is. They are excited about this. They'll take his side. There's more of those than there are these distractors out there. That is for sure. That is for sure. I guarantee you, because everyone on my channel and a lot of people, they know about this. They're excited about this. I think this is going to be a big boon for Star Wars EU fans, especially. They're going to love to read this. I cannot wait to sit down and read this all the way through. It's going to be very exciting for the year 2022. Probably the most exciting thing we'll get to see for some time. And just for Chris's point, it's going to shine a spotlight on the proper site people should go, StarWarsTimeline.net.
Yeah, I want that to be the narrative. I mean, if we're writing the headline, I mean, I just feel like it's like Wikipedia, like it's just confirmed its sort of continuing irrelevance. Let's not, but Kyle, again, to build on your point, let's not get bitter and now sort of like just, like they're done. We don't need to talk about them much anymore, right? I mean, I think the record's clear. We're sort of establishing sort of the facts, right? But let's turn this into something positive, which is that we'll have Joe's, Silmarillion of the EU available, hopefully sooner than later, right? So that's the thing. We don't need to go online and tag Wikipedia and tell them how stupid they are, right? And moreover, if that happens, and there's always going to be trolls who are going to do that, just so we can set the record. If Joe will allow us to speak for him, that's not coming from Joe, right? Joe's not ordering anyone to do that, right? Again, go back to my earlier point. It's like cautionary tale. Joe's a big boy. He can fight that fight, right? He has done what he's needed to do in terms of putting out the information on his site. And you know what? And he's not looking for a fight. You know what he's looking to do? He's looking to continue to explore the expanded universe, right? In a positive way, right? So.
Agreed. Well said. Well said.
Absolutely.
Scott, do you have any Yo Mama jokes for Wikipedia?
No more about Wikipedia.
Okay.
I just wanted to plug Joe's site, StarWarsTimeline.net. Again, there's just a wealth of information out there. So many lost treasures of the expanded universe are there for free. Fans should check that out if they haven't already.
And we should say it's growing in 2022. You're going to see, Kyle, correct me if I'm wrong, some German Ewok stories translated.
That's the goal.
And then already, and they may be halfway through by now, I don't know, but the long lost Hungarian Han Solo books are there they are. They're
and this one
finally,
too. And the sequel to Heir to the Empire.
Oh, you got that one too. Is that called Power of the Force?
Well, I guess so. Yeah.
Okay.
Jedi Hetoma.
Those are getting. I don't know about Power of the Force, but I know the other 4 books are getting translated. I was able to read the first one, and I thought the guy did a great job. So those are also coming out 2022. This is going to be possibly one of the best years for EU fans, just because of all the unpublished material that is going to be, or translated material that's coming out too. There's going to be a lot to celebrate on, a lot to enjoy, and that is all coming to you thanks to Joe at StarWarsTimeline.net. He is going to put his site on the map in 2022. There's going to be a lot, just like there's this big hubbub for Heart of the Jedi. You ain't seen nothing yet. I think 2022 is going to be so exciting. On my part, it's going to be super exciting. Super exciting. All right. Any other final thoughts, gentlemen?
StarWarsTimeline.net. That's it.
There you go. There you go.
Check it out.
There you go. Also, this whole time you didn't notice, but Kyle wasn't wearing pants. He refused to.
No pants.
That was one of his stipulations about coming on. But anyway, Kyle, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
I have a feeling we'll be talking more.
Oh yes, sir. Oh yes.
Into the new year, we'll be having you back on. I have a feeling.
Wonderful. And the next announcement, both of you all 3 of you actually, we'll all have to do this exactly this group.
Yeah.
And make an announcement then.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I'm for the announcement. Okay. Speaking of great announcements, I will announce that in January on StarWarsTimeline.com. Scott Johnson will be taking over. I have him completing his series of articles on the CCG collectible card game. Is that correct? Said that right?
That's right.
I had zero interest in this card game when it came out, and these articles are fantastic. I've learned a lot from them because I did not know a lot of the facts that Scott was spitting out. So you definitely want to look at those. Look for those to come out throughout the this month on the blog. And Scott, anything else you want to plug?
No, just check out those articles, and hopefully I'll have ideas for more after that.
That's right. That's right. Also, folks, Kyle, you had something?
One more plug. I almost forgot to mention. I just joined a board of directors for this group called the Jedi Conclave. And they're going to be, no joke, it's a nonprofit. There's going to be a Legends convention, a Star Wars Legends specific convention. It's going to be in Maryland in 2023.
Okay.
Okay.
One more plug.
We'll have to have you back. We'll have to have you back on when we get more detail about that.
Absolutely. Just as far as shameless plug goes, it's just like that.
No, that's great. It's great to hear. Also, I should mention Chris Nelson is on YouTube. Oh wait.
I'm on YouTube right now.
Yeah. He's on right now. But you can catch him whenever he gets to resurrect. Wookpedia has to give him the green light for him to start his YouTube channel again.
That's right.
But it was under the orders, express written orders of Kathleen Kennedy. I should also,
He must be obeyed.
Who Chris reported that she will be losing her job within the next 20 years. It's almost positive. He'll be reporting on this every month that she's going to get fired. Rumor on good word. But anyway, Chris, I hope you get your channel back soon. I loved it. I think everyone loved your bits of EU knowledge and amazing, unique collection you have.
It keeps growing. I'll show you this real fast. This is cool.
Hold on, I'm going to blow you up here.
Dylan's always talking about how many different editions of Heir to the Empire have been published, right? They continue to come. I'm going to add this. This is tiny little sampler, right? So this came out before Heir to the Empire in the spring of '91. and it's advertising something by Timothy Zahn. You can see at the bottom. So this is, I think, the first appearance actually of a snippet of Heir to the Empire. So that's kind of fun. So add it to the list of Heir to the Empires you need to collect.
That's awesome.
I never even knew that existed. Awesome. How do you find stuff like this?
I don't have time for YouTube anymore because I'm just thinking of all these different things to Google and to search for, right? And I got a big kick recently. I just decided to, type in Star Wars and sampler into all sorts of different platforms, right? And I found that. I found tons of Clone Wars related comic samplers and things that I didn't know existed. So yeah, I'm completely broke, but I have lots of one-of-a-kind things. So
wow, taking collecting to a whole new level. There you have it.
Bring back folks. The Nelson.
That's right. That's what we want. All right. So anyway, folks, I want to thank again all my guests for joining. Folks, let us know in the comments what you think about this. Are you excited about Joe's new book and everything happening in the year 2022? Let us know in the comments. Show Joe some love. And